for any good thing coming up in the campus, we are always ready to support it, and we never say no to it. Only the thing is, whatever we are spending should be meaningful, should be useful, should have some results at the end of the day. Otherwise, we can't keep on spending unnecessarily for unnecessary things. So, come up with your proposals, come up with new things. Great scientists are sitting in front of you. Take advantage of them. And Dr. Gupta, all the way from New York University, he has come here to interact with you. He is a great scientist, and such people, if you meet them and if you interact with them, naturally there will be good improvement in your life also, and you can also become something great in your life. And Cardinal Stretch University, already our team of students, they are going to Cardinal Stretch University in the next month, in June, around 3rd week of June they are going, and they will be there for about 10-12 days, and they will be seeing the 2-3 hospitals around by, and what latest medical science they have been adopting, what are the latest technologies they are using in the medical science. They are going to witness there, and there the professors, the university is hosting them for all the 10-12 days. So they will be there, and then they will return back. So if such exchange programs, we are trying to talk to other universities also. If you are interested in any particular subject you are interested, and such research or such courses are happening in the other universities, you want to go there, we are always there to support you. We will take care. And Dr. Vishnu is very proactive. You take good help of him. And Dr. Ratnagiri is always for you. There is no doubt, because I know him personally. For the last 3 years I have been interacting with him. He is always for you. And not only such people, there are several other people. World is very small. World is very small thanks to technology. Anyone you want to contact anywhere in the globe, it's a matter of just 10-15 minutes. Send an email or talk to them live or video conference. Anything is possible. You can interact with anyone in the globe. Sitting here, we have virtual classrooms, we have all the facilities in the campus. Try to take advantage of it. Try to do something great in your life. Thank you, one and all.
Regarding the management was announced for Dr. Vijay. We went to VC sir and we explained, sir, this is the what, and management have to contribute 50%. Total of 32 lakhs for 4 years, 16 lakhs. He didn't even think for 1 second. He said, yes, this we have to do. This is the fastest decision from somebody I heard. In 1 second, he just take it. So he has interest, but you have to show that you worth it. So it's so easy to talk that somebody is not doing, but when somebody is ready, it is our duty to show that we can do it. So please go ahead with your proposals, and it is our job to convince him. Thank you very much, sir. Now I request Dr. Nikhil Gupta and Dr. Giri sir and other guests to felicitate our Dr. Vijay. Dr. Vijay, please.
Sir, center, sir, center. Sir, 1 second, sir. Thank you, sir.
I feel that I'm a bit nervous because I've been told now to have a talk for 2 minutes, and I don't know how to put up words. I just want to introduce myself. I'm Dr. Vijay. I did my PG from MNR College of Dental Science, and during my course only I started had an image of doing some kind. I started having an imaginary world of doing some kind of betterment for something for the society I wanted to do, and my area of interest is oncology, and I just want to give special thanks to VC sir, and especially Dr. our principal ma'am, Dr. Sujata Gopal ma'am, and the one person who has initiated and thought that I am the person who can do something for the society is none other than Krantikara Reddy sir from
He is very happy now. He can't.
sorry.
No problem. Yes. Thank you very much.
I just wanted to mention one more thing, that since we all are professionally educated, doctors and engineers, in India there is big thing that we should always be satisfied, but I think for professionally qualified people, being satisfied is the curse that holds us back from inventing new things. So you should always think for opportunities where you can make your life and your patient's life simpler and invent new things and go into the new directions. So coming to the 3D printing, it's a very new technology. A lot of things are still evolving. It's in the development stage, and that's really the opportunity in front of all of us. Right now, based on the needs, we can guide this field, we can guide how 3D printing develops over the years, and then we can make use of this kind of technology for our needs and our patients' needs. So, I'm Nikhil Gupta. My contact information is all given here, email address and website address. I've held a webinar with you previously. I think some of you might have attended that. But if anybody wants to get in touch with me, Vishu has all the information, and I'll be happy to connect with you. I've been collaborating with quite a few people. I would like to thank all of them here. Mrityunjay is right here from our collaboration team. And for this talk, I'll go basic because there are more presentations to come up later on. So my presentation will be focused on how we develop the CAD model. And I'll give you an overview of the field on how this 3D printing actually works. And then you can proliferate that into your field of interest to see how you as a doctor can use it for the benefit of your own profession or for the patient. So some of the questions I will try to answer. Can anything be made by additive manufacturing? That's the very common thought that everybody has. People say that I'm going to make everything with additive manufacturing that's around us. Should we do it, or even is it possible? So that's one big question to answer. Can we use any material to use additive manufacturing? Again, another big question that people ask. Are CAD models developed for additive manufacturing any different? And this is more for engineering students because they take the CAD design courses in their first or second year. But this additive manufacturing is a new field, and that's where they ask this question over and over. And what are the risks related to additive manufacturing and how to minimize that? That's the final thought for these things. So since you are not from engineering background, I included a couple of slides on how things are made. And there are traditional manufacturing methods. I just put two of them for example. One is casting. In casting, we melt a material and then we put it into a mold, and the molten material takes the shape of this mold. So that's how casting works. And then there is a family of processes, and I just put one of them. It's called forging. Forging means you take a piece of metal and then you hit it as many times as you need to, or compress it at high temperature, and you mold it into a shape. And this is the shape that you finally want. So any kind of implants, not just implants, but tools that you see around you, or any other structures that you see around you, they are made by one of these traditional processes that we have perfected over a large number of years, over decades of work. There are many advantages of these traditional processes. We can do large volume production. I mean, consider you are 300 people sitting here, all of you will need a set of tools for yourself. And some of these tools are disposable, so you need new ones every day or for every patient. So that's a very large volume. And keeping the cost low for these large production volumes is a big advantage for these traditional methods. We can make intricate shaped parts because over decades we have developed this process and perfected them. So we have a good control over the shape, size, and the quality of products that come out from these processes, and we have great confidence on them. The production speed can be very fast because large volume production will require us to have very fast speed, otherwise things become expensive. And then we can have control over the structure of these materials, inside the structure of these materials, so that they give you properties or performance that you are looking for. But these methods have some limitations as well. We cannot make parts that have some sort of internal structures. We can only shape them from outside, but there is nothing we can do inside. Additive manufacturing is a layer by layer manufacturing process where you can make pretty much any internal structures that you want. So for example, if you want to create some hollowness inside to make a part light, you cannot do it with a casting, but you can do it with additive manufacturing. You can also customize the parts very easily for every single patient that you want, because you will be creating these parts individually in additive manufacturing machine. So that's a big advantage that you cannot have in casting, where all the parts will have to have the same shape in a mold. If you want to change the size of a cast part, then you would have to machine it further. So that adds cost. We need a large facility and we need large trained workforce for some of these traditional manufacturing methods. But in additive manufacturing, the tools are limited. You can get trained with them and then you can take advantage of those tools very easily and get forward with that. So this slide is extremely important because that question comes up over and over, especially in the US, that everything is driven by Food and Drug Administration, FDA. So what is their stand? And people think that with new technologies, FDA takes forever to approve the new technologies. But that's not really the case. You can note down the paper which I'm displaying here. This is written by several FDA employees which are in different divisions of FDA, and they outline the procedures they have taken for approving the additive manufactured parts. There are 4 different things which are noted here. The first one is patient-specific anatomy for surgical planning. So this field doesn't have directly anything to do with the patient himself or herself. But you take an image and you create a 3D model of the same patient-specific image. When you practice your surgery there, and then you go and do the surgery on the patient. So they do it for complicated surgeries, and it works out very well. So FDA has approved several of these patient-specific models right now, and they've been very fast and very aggressive in approving these models because it helps in training doctors, especially for challenging surgeries which were not happening before. The pharmacoprinting is the second area where now there is a drug which has been approved and it's in the realm of personalized medicine. And more drugs are yet to come, but they are in the pipeline. In bioprinting, like printing of organs, printing of heart or arteries or other things, currently there is no approved product, but these products are coming in. And it's not just a limitation that they are not approving, but the community itself is not able to develop things on which they are confident. But this is the fastest growing area of research right now, and there's a lot more things to come here. So if anybody wants to come into the basic research right now, this is the area which is expanding the fastest. And then there are medical devices. So you heard this morning about microfluidic devices and other things. I think that's where these devices come. They can be implantable or non-implantable. Non-implantable devices are very easy to get approval from. Implantable devices, they take more scrutiny, so they take a longer timeline. But the 510K, you can read this regulation from FDA. It says that within 90 days, a device has to be approved, or at least a decision has to be taken about approval or disapproval. So, the example that I've taken here, that's just an example. There are many more examples you can create for now. And this is related to maxillofacial surgery. And we work closely with the dental school, and people are working in different aspects of the anatomy there. We took this example because it was extremely illustrative, as I'm going to show you in future slides. It's a simple geometry, but the complexity that this example has in 3D printing is enormous, and that's what was fascinating to us about it. A lot of people think that this is what 3D printing is. You make a CAD design, you put the CAD design into 3D printer, and this 3D printer will just give you any design that you want. Okay. But this is not realistic. This is not what really happens. There are a number of steps that happen between CAD model development and then feeding into 3D printer. And the printer itself is a very complex operation. There are a lot of things that printer designers have put into the printer control system so that the printer gives certain output. And you would have to understand quite a few of those things before you get to high quality output, especially if you want to implant some of those things into the patient. So what is a process chain? The process chain is simple, and you have done maybe CT scan or MRIs of patients. You receive the DICOM files. But this process is opposite to that. So what we have is here a 3D model that we will try to print at the end. We try to create these 2D slices from this 3D CAD model that we develop. And then each of these slices will be printed. And as you can imagine, the printing can happen in many different directions. Each of these directions will probably give you different properties. So that is something to understand very carefully. You can also imagine that when you slice something into thin slices like this, there is some information that will be lost between these slices. So how far apart these slices are, what is the thickness of these slices, all that is going to be extremely important in getting the output that you desire here. If these steps are not conducted correctly in 3D printing process chain is very long. Now what happens after you print the part? You have to take it for testing. So right now testing is not your responsibility because companies that are selling these products to you, they have done this testing before. They are selling the same product in large number to a large number of doctors and hospitals. They are also selling the same product in many countries where FDAs have tested, other agencies have tested them. But imagine the situation now, you are creating this part, which is going inside the patient. So who's going to take the responsibility for quality of that part if the failure occurs? It's going to be your responsibility at that point. So how do we create this, this information about the quality? We can do imaging, we can do non-destructive evaluation, or we can create, say, 5 replicas and we can test 4 of them with different types. We can even do destructive testing on 4 of them, and the 5th one can be plugged. It will increase the cost, but it will give you more confidence in the structure. So this is more detail about how we test these things. Microscopy is a very common example. And microscopy of materials is a little bit different from medical microscopy because your samples are mostly tissue samples. They require a microscope with light coming from the bottom, and you have the eyepiece on top. But materials microscope have a different structure. The eyepiece and objective are both on the top. So it's a little bit different microscopy procedures there. But then non-destructive evaluation techniques like ultrasound, we use the same technique as material scientists, as I use the same technique. And you can do X-ray and tomography techniques in a similar manner. So a lot of these existing tools can be taken for the implants, not just the patient, but also for implants that you create here. All it needs is maybe collaboration with radiologists or maybe learning a little bit more about those techniques. But it is possible in your given setting here. Now a lot of people think that the printer which we have here, that's what is a 3D printer. But this is just one example of all these printing technologies which are out there. So Professor Dotamani is going to show you 7 different categories of 3D printing technologies which are out there. Based on these 7 categories, people have come up with over 20 different additive manufacturing methods. The most common one is the one that you see here. It's called fused deposition modeling, or FDM printers. It does is it takes a filament, it's a thermoplastic polymer filament, heats the filament to make it more viscous or less viscous in this case, and extrude it out from a nozzle to create the structure that we are looking for. But there are many other technologies out there. Powder bed methods are getting more and more popular because they can give you better quality products with finer features if you require them. But these laser-based systems are more expensive compared to the printer that you see here. So just to give you a comparative numbers based on US numbers, a printer like this will cost about $1,500 in the US. And a similar printer with a laser-based system will cost almost about $300,000. So that's a remarkable difference here. And the type of materials that you can print pretty much anything these days, any category these days, metal, polymer, ceramic, or composites. But within these categories, the variety is sort of limited right now, but this is where a lot of research in material science is going. So I don't think 5 years down the road, materials are going to be a limitation for this additive manufacturing field. Biomedical applications are the biggest beneficiaries here, because a lot of these materials that you see here, stainless steel, cobalt chrome steel, and titanium, they are already developed for additive manufacturing. And you know why they have been the focus? They have not been the focus because of their application in biomedical, but they have been focused because of their applications in aerospace structures. But biomedical applications are direct beneficiaries of these advancements. Ceramic printers or multi-material printers are again very common these days in dental schools. So NYU Dental School specializes in multi-material printers, where you can mix two different types of polymers, or you can mix ceramic with polymer and create implants out of that. So this is the first common type of printer, the fused deposition modeling, the kind of printer that you see here. This is a more industrial version of this printer that we have. This one costs about $50,000. And I would encourage you to look at this printer carefully to see how it functions, all these designs that are being printed. You can try to handle them, look at them more carefully. These printers are mostly specialized for ABS, polylactic acid, polyvinyl chloride, and high-density polyethylene, those kinds of materials, many of which are already approved biomaterials. Different types of printers that you can use to make them. And one of the examples based on which we created an example that I'll show you in the next few slides. Very simple geometry, just 4 holes and not many contours here, but the idea is to show how the holes make it complicated to get the additive manufactured parts. So when the complexity of this geometry is the one that we want the additive manufacturing for, we really have to understand this process well in order to get the geometry right. And these are some examples I took from literature. But where people have been using this additive manufacturing. Sorry. I think it jumped a few slides. So this is where I will cover a few examples where how we can create. We did the tensile testing.